Okay. It's a good life. It's the first time we haven't started late, Mr. Chairman, since you've been on board. Is this gonna be a problem in 2024?
We'll never get that time back.
Oh, God. Sorry. My fault. Ready? Good evening, everybody. This is the February 6th, 2024 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals, zoning. Present here this evening are Allison Grass, Howell Morrison, Robin Richards, John Bennett, and me, your chair, Jeff Tibbles. Present from the planning staff are Lee Batchelder, Penny Ashby, and Emma McQuarrie. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak please identify yourself for the record. We will conduct this meeting in the usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. If the Board of Zoning Appeals usually, but not always, approves uncontested applications, for all applications, the board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with condition, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals zoning has the authority to do three things. Number one, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Number two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I'm required by our ordinance to swear you in if you intend to speak. So if you do intend to speak, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You'll signify by saying, I do. Thank you. We have no deferrals on this evening's agenda, so we'll go straight to item A, review of minutes and deferred applications from previously advertised BZA-Z agendas. Number one, review minutes of the January 16, 2024 board meeting. Those minutes are in your packet of materials. Board members, there were only 3 of us who were here tonight who were in attendance on that January 16th meeting, and so I would welcome a motion from John or Robin to approve those minutes.
Move for approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve, Mr. Richard seconds, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
None are opposed, the motion passes, the minutes are approved. B, new applications. Number 1, 52 St. Margaret Street, Wagner Terrace, TMS number 463-11-04-016, zoned SR2, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a 2-story addition, den master bedroom suite that connects a 1-story detached garage to the main house having a 1.4 foot rear setback, 25 feet are required. The owner is Thomas Acree. The applicant is Seraphin Michael Milan. Mr. Batchel.
This residential property sits at the northeast corner of St. Margaret Street and 12th Avenue. And the request is to allow an addition to be constructed onto the back of the existing house. And that addition will be located such that it will connect the little garage building in the back of the property to the main house. So effectively, that makes the rear setback of the main house, this side of this existing accessory building back here. Here's a view of the property as it exists today. And this is a church. Just let me turn my. There. So this building back here is a church. And then you've got two-story residential buildings on either side. So right here next door, and then the building, the house across 12th Avenue, and a 1.5-story house, I believe, across the street. But there are other two-story houses as well as one-story houses in the neighborhood. This particular house is a one-story house, 52 St. Margaret. The applicant submitted their information and a list of other properties that have had second-story additions recently, and also has photographs of those homes. This is a letter from the neighborhood association indicating that they support this request. And these are letters from neighbors around this property indicating support. Margaret. St. Margaret. So these are photographs, and I'll let the applicant go through these in more detail if you'd like, but you can see the before and the after. Before is on the left and after is on the right. And these homes have are either 1-story, 1.5-story homes, and they've had additions constructed in the backyard that were at least well, one, it looks like 2 stories in this case. So here's a 2-story addition back here. And this home is a corner lot, and this became the front of the house after it was renovated. And the small half-story on the second floor was enlarged with these dormers to make it more functional. This is another example, 1-story house redone with a dormer to make that a half-story on the main house, and then an addition in the back. It is 2 stories. This one is a little easier to see. And these are all homes in Wagner Terrace. So this one's Darlington. These are all like, well, anyway, I can speak to that. So these are the same one. 31 Darlington. This is 130 Darlington. 210 Gordon Street. See the house back here. 905 Ashley Avenue. And this one has a full second story being added to the previous house, 234 St. Margaret Street. This is 166 Grove Street. You can see the two-story addition tucked in the back here. 170 Grove Street. It's harder to see because of the trees. 199 Grove Street. And 248 Grove Street. 52 Clemson. 107 Maple Street. And then these are new houses. Well, this was demolished, this one-story house, and replaced by this house, which is 2 stories technically. And again, this was demolished, this one-story ranch, and replaced by this house, this 2-story house. So this is the existing site plan. You have the house situated in the middle of the lot, roughly. And the setback lines are kind of faint, but I've got the laser pointer on the 25-foot setback line right here off of St. Margaret Street. And so right away, you notice that the front wall of the house, which could be as close as 25 feet from the front property line, is it's about 9 feet further back on the property. So there's a 34-foot setback from the front property line to the front wall of the house. And porches and stairs are permitted to encroach into the front setback under the rules that we have in effect today. So, and when this house was constructed, I don't believe there were zoning requirements that required it to be set back this far, but it's 9 feet further back than it needs to be. And that, of course, decreases the amount of room in the backyard. And what the applicant is proposing to do, as you'll see on this site plan, is construct this addition. So the additional area is shown in this cross-hatched area right here. So this is the extent of the first floor addition to the existing house. And then they've got a small porch here. And that's part of the proposal. But and then above this is a second floor in this area right here. And the applicant can speak to this, but I think what they're attempting to do is preserve as much of their yard as they can in the back. And existing elevation, front elevation shown here on the top, and the proposed is on the bottom. Existing and proposed side elevation. So this is the 12th Avenue side elevation. The rear addition, rear elevation, sorry. And the east side elevation. And these are perspective drawings. Existing on the left, proposed on the right. So that concludes the applicant's materials that they submitted. And I'm happy to go back through and advance these through any images that the applicant wants me to pull up. But so the variances to the rear setback to reduce the rear setback, and it's listed as 1.4 feet because that is the setback of the existing accessory building. But this addition, go back to the site plan. This rear wall of the proposed addition is 13.6 feet from the rear property And the width of this addition is, this side of the addition is set right on the 9-foot setback. The required 9-foot side setback. The width of that buildable area on this lot from the side setback over here to the side setback closest to 12th Avenue is 41 feet. And the addition is 24 feet wide. So the addition is only taking up 59% of the width of this side setback. So it's a small encroachment. My point is, it's a small encroachment into the rear setback. And again, because of this existing garage building, it ends up connecting to that garage and creating a main building with a 1.4-foot rear setback. But effectively, the addition has a 13.4-foot or 13.6-foot rear setback from the property. So I think it's a reasonable request. I think there's a challenge with many of these properties in Wagner Terrace in trying to add living space. And this is certainly not a large addition, but they're trying to make use of their property in a way that doesn't adversely affect their property or the neighboring properties. I don't believe so. I think they have a hardship. I think there's a case to be made. Some of these cases can potentially look to add a second floor or maybe even a half story to the existing house. But then structural issues sometimes prevent that. And the other thing about it is that these homes are protected, in fact, by the BAR. When you go to demolish any feature, exterior feature of the house, even if you're changing part of the roof, you have to get the BAR's approval to effectively demolish that existing feature and replace it with whatever you're proposing to do. So they'll have to go through the BAR process, but that does sometimes limit homeowners who have these 1-story or 1.5-story homes from modifying or altering the existing roofs on their properties. So that is another reason for these rear additions that people are doing to add more square footage, more living space to their homes. And so with all that said, my recommendation is for approval. I think they satisfy the variance test, and I'm supporting this.
Thank you, Lee. Anybody here in the audience this evening opposed to the application for 52 St. Margaret Street? If you're opposed, right. No one's here in opposition to the application. Do we have the owner or applicant here this evening? Good evening again. Anything that you'd like to say to the board this evening?
Good evening. My name is Michael Milano. I'm an applicant for project owner with me tonight. I just wanted to say thank you guys for hearing my request again. Important notable. My name is Michael Milano. I'm an architect. Important notable characteristics of the project is that the existing home is not fulfilled the square footage that the zone allows. It is at 9 foot 3 inches back from the 25-foot setback, creating physical hardship of not being able to use the property in a reasonable way. The existing home is built 21 foot 6 inches above grade, where the height limit in this zone is 35 inches or 35 feet, excuse me. The addition that we're suggesting that sits on a modest 550 square foot of land only adds 5 foot in height to the overall project. The ridge of the new addition, proposed addition, is 5 foot higher than the ridge of the existing home, which we believe makes it visually perceivable from the principal elevation of St. Margaret Street. as evidenced by the review included in the presentation. We believe that we put together all of these other homes in the area. They were all Wagner Terrace. Not to specifically talk about any one, just to show that there are a lot. Some are look really, really good. Some do not respect the artificial fabric of the community very much. We've gone through great efforts, and the neighborhood association backs us up in the fact that we tried very hard to create complementary architecture that will fit with the existing design of the home as well as the architectural fabric of the neighborhood as in total. What we're trying to do is recapture some of this square footage that the zone would have allowed the property to have at the back of the site and step it back from the secondary elevation of 12th Street in order to gain as much yard as we can for the family, as well as not encroach upon the neighborhood itself. The house was set so far back and built so low that it does not reasonably use the property in the way that it was meant to be used. Lee touched on this, but the home is not conforming on the side setback, and we have made every effort not to go into that setback any further, nor come any closer to any structure than the existing structures on the property already do. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Mr. Milan. Sir?
I think that covers it. I think Lee pretty much summed it up what we're trying to do. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for the city? Questions for the applicant? Folks?
I just wanted to ask, you might have touched on this last time, but will the garage remain a garage or will
Yes.
that become livable
It
space?
will remain a garage with the door into the new proposed addition to allow garage to be usable like that. It also is built so low that it would not be able to be habitable space without coming back to.
Any other questions? Discussion. Move approval. Mr. Morrison moves to approve.
Second.
Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the application for 52 St. Margaret Street for the variance is granted. Thank you. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is B2 for 60 Spring Street, Cannonboro, Elliottboro, PMS number 460-08-02-034, zone GB. Requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a detached single-family residence with a front setback of 64.3 feet and a total side setback of 13 feet. 80 feet and 15 feet are required. The owner applicant is 60 Unlimited Ideas LLC, Monty Brown. Mr. Batchelder.
This is a commercially zoned property on Spring Street. It's between St. Philip Street and Hemming Street, right in the middle of the block. And so here's the lot question, right here. It's a very deep lot. Kind of narrow, but very deep. It has 3 residential units on it right now, and 3 units are permitted by the size of that lot. There are 2 in the main house up front, and there's a 3rd unit in the back building back here. What the applicant is proposing to do is convert the main house up front to a single family and build a 2nd unit in a new building back here, and then keep the 3rd unit at the back of the lot. Here's an aerial view of that existing condition. One other thing I'll point out. So this property right here, this is residential. These are residential units, and they're owned by the Charleston Housing Authority. And so you see these units right here that are owned by the Housing Authority. So here are the plans that were submitted. I'll go first off. it's hard to see it, but there's the existing building sits up here. This is the proposed building footprint right here. Then you can see the two-story wood frame building in the back of the lot here. This is a close-up view showing this new building. The setback is 64 feet, 4 inches from the front property line, this new building. And that is the first variance that is being requested. Because the requirement is 80 feet. And so 64 feet versus the requirement of 80 feet. They're placing this building in line with the existing house up front with a setback of 3 feet, actually a little bit more, 3 feet 7 off of the side property line. Over here, 3 feet is required. And then the setback over here is more than required. The requirement is 9 feet? 9 feet. The requirement is 9 feet on the west side setback. They're providing 10 feet 7 inches. But the total does not equal the 15 feet that is required by the ordinance. So that's the second variance request. And we'll say that there was a plan and actually there was a plan on a previous agenda of the board several months ago. And that proposal had this building sitting right over on the side property line or very close to the side property line. So they were asking for a variance to locate the building close to that, very close to that east side property line. And there were concerns voiced by the neighbor, and I felt like they had an opportunity to relocate this building away from that property line, meet that setback on that side, so that they wouldn't impact the neighbor on that side, and still provide enough room for them to build the second unit that they wanted to build. They did have to downsize the building a little bit in order to make that work. And I'll just point out here also that they're showing on these site plans the required parking and the ability to access these parking spaces coming into the property as well as exiting the property, driving forward. And the other thing about this is that they have a lease. The owner has a lease with the housing authority to continue using the little strip of land on the housing authority property for the parking spaces at the back. That condition exists right now, and they've secured a formal lease with the housing authority to allow that to continue. So the building that's proposed is a simple 2-bedroom residential unit. Shown here, we'll have to, of course, go through the BAR process and be reviewed by the board. But that's the extent of the request. In order to maintain the integrity of the main house, they don't want to add this building or build this addition off to the back of the main house. They want to let that be a standalone structure. And because if they did just simply connect it to the existing building, there would not be a need for a setback variance from the front property line. So, but by pushing it back and offering that separation to maintain the existing integrity of the existing historic building, they're needing this variance. They are providing the parking, they're fitting it in and around the building in the front and the back. So I think they've done a very good job of trying to work within the parameters of the zoning ordinance and meet the requirements to the greatest extent possible. So I recommend that this be approved.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anyone here in opposition to the application for 60 Spring Street? If you're in opposition, raise your hand. Well, are you here in opposition?
Yes, I am in opposition.
If
I'm
you'll
not
just,
necessarily in opposition. I am the closest adjacent neighbor on the east side, and I have a couple concerns that were brought up in both applications that really haven't been explained thoroughly to me, and I just kind of wanted to air that.
right, understood. So we'll give you an opportunity to speak after the applicant or the owner. Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to see if there was someone.
Okay,
here
I
to
thought you
speak.
were asking me to speak. No worries.
We're on the same page. Thank you. Do we have the owner or the applicant here present? All right, sir, anything you'd like to say to the board? Sounds like you might to address.
I don't think so. I mean, I think we summed it up too well.
Okay. Anybody else who wants to speak in favor of the application for 60 Spring Street? All right, seeing no one else in favor of it. Now it's your turn, sir. Thank
Okay,
you.
Approach the podium.
Please do. Thank you.
My name is Jack Darian. I own 58 Spring Street and have since 2001. So I'm the closest neighbor on the east side adjacent. This is me. And so on both applications, the original application and this resubmittal, there's a dispute on our property line that has never been brought to my attention other than I've seen it in both of these plans. And it says that we have a dispute in our property line in here. And I have a shed here that's been there for the last 21 years that they're saying is encroaching, the applicant is saying is encroaching as well. And so basically, I just want an understanding, is the applicant asking me to move my fence and my shed as part of this process? Or does that have nothing to do with this? I only bring it up because it's been noted in both of the applications that I'm encroaching on this property, and I want to know what my what my rights are in terms of that, and do I need to have this independently surveyed myself in order to feel confident that where my actual property line is? And so that's one concern. My only other concern is the water. Obviously downtown Charleston. The only thing that I would ask on that, I do appreciate that the applicant, when they resubmitted, has downsized this from what it was. There's much less exposure to my yard from potential water, and actually allows more sunlight into my yard than would have with the original application. So I definitely appreciate that. But I would respectfully request that the applicant, as part of the approval, has some sort of water mitigation plan, that they are going to show you how they are going to take the water from here to here. Where Lee was talking about the housing authority, that was the old Clausen Bakery. I guess I believe it was late 1800s, but that entire piece of property is raised up. From 48 Spring to 58 Spring, there's a terracotta wall in all of our backyards that actually ends with me at 60 Spring. So I'm already looking at a 25-inch ledge where all of the water from Bogart Street and Clausen's Bakery come through my yard this way as a river. And so part of my original concern with this was, not just the mass and scale of it, but how they were choosing to shed the water. I proposed to the applicant maybe a shed roof and showing a way to bring the water out, and not choosing a gable roof where they're obviously going to be throwing water this way. But again, if the applicant just has as part of the plan, that there is some sort of a water mitigation of something planned in order to bring the water out this way and not just send it this way, I would be very appreciative. And those are my only two concerns.
Sports.
Do you know the size of the alleged encroachment?
And that's my question. I don't. So basically also, I guess my question goes into, if they have a 3-foot setback, right? And you're talking your setback, you're talking about your foundation line. So when you talk about the roof with the soffit and the fascia, that's gonna overhang, I don't know, another 14, 16 inches. And depending on the size of this encroachment, all of a sudden a 3-foot setback could be like right on top of me. I don't know, and that's why I'm concerned. It could be nothing. I could be up here talking about inches, and in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. But, and again, I'm really not trying to gum up the works. I just want to understand if the applicant has brought it up in both of the applications that I'm encroaching on his property, I want to know what the applicant wants me to do about it, I guess, and is it related to this project, right? Is the applicant asking me to do anything with a structure and a fence that have been there since 2001 in the form that I put them there, but on the corner of his house here, and here are 3 massive 6x6s that somebody put in the ground with concrete. And this shed is like a pole barn that comes off of 2 of those 6x6s. When I bought this piece of property, all I did was connect the dots right here with 3 4x4s. But those original massive 6x6s are there, and I just went to the line that was there. And so I just want to know, yeah, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I just want to know if I'm encroaching, I want to know if they're asking if my fence and shed come down as any part of this project.
All right, thank you, sir. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not adjudicate boundary line disputes. However, let's see if we can understand whether you have anything to worry about. Mr. Brown, is there anything you can speak to with respect to the alleged encroachments and whether or not you're, I assume, are you the owner and the,
No, I'm the architect on it.
okay.
Mr. Brown's not.
Can you speak to the boundary line issue at all?
I mean, approach.
Sure, please.
I guess. I mean, I'm not. I remember, it was kind of a lot of brush. Can't remember exactly where this shed is, exactly where on the property line, so I don't know either.
Well, let me back
The
up.
first third of the structure that you're about to build.
Yeah,
Um,
you can see it on this survey.
It's
It's under the end. It's right under the end.
basically it's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then so you're going right here, so about the first third of the structure is kind of common space between the 2 of those. And so
Right.
that's what I'm just trying to figure out, is
Yeah.
if part of this process is gonna require me to tear stuff down.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be kind of between, I think, you and the owner. I think that this should be able to be built. The new house should be able to be built with that still intact. I mean, but, what I can see here are 3 feet away. Now, with them digging new footings, is that gonna compromise that existing concrete? I don't know. Also, I mean, that's, the contractor too can kind of, maybe see if you can save that, I mean. So I think that's kind of where it would kind of be kind of a job site decision when they're digging, but. And then, as far as you're concerned about the water and all that kind of stuff, yeah, we've been talking about that. We do have a civil engineer that's been working with drainage and what's the best way to make it better and not worse. Sure.
Is there any plan for guttering, or is it just gonna be a runoff with the water engineer?
Well, there definitely will be gutters on the home, and then whether French drain or barrels or whatever they can come up with. We look at that water.
As part of, I think you might have answered this question, as part of the permitting process, they go through TRC
Yes.
and stormwater management. Okay.
The project will have to go through the city's technical review committee. And that includes the stormwater department, and they'll be looking to see how the water on site is handled on site, and have all kinds of rules, requirements for that.
Is part of the request for the variance on this property line that he shares with Mr. Darian?
Yeah, so if I go back,
Yeah,
the shed encroachment is right here. And this is the back, this is the rear property line from Mr. Darian. right
And
here.
for context, I have plans on rebuilding that shed exactly where it was because that was my established footprint. And I've had prior conversations with Lee about this. And so that's where I'm coming from is I want to know what I need to do. Do I need to have this survey to know where my property line really is at this point? And if I do, if it affects if it affects my, relationship, physical boundary with next door, and I don't know how close that house is to me anymore until I have that done. And I'm not sure, like I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay for a survey necessarily.
we understand,
but at the
we
same
understand,
time-
we understand. So the question, so that would be a variance for the side setback and the total setback on both sides, is that correct? There's actually
For the
two
new building?
variances yes, sir.
No,
Okay,
so the building that's proposed satisfies the east side setback, so it's actually 3 feet 7 inches off the side property line. And 3 feet is required.
okay.
And the shed encroachment is approximately this location right here. Because this is the rear property line of Mr. Darian.
But all that encroachment talk and measurement assumes the accuracy of this survey.
Correct.
Right.
And what this gentleman is saying is there are old concrete posts that appear to be survey markers, which are different from that property line.
Yeah.
And I mean, isn't that what you're suggesting? Those concrete posts appear, you assume they
They're
survey?
older, there were posts there when I acquired the property and I connected the dots.
Right.
And again, if my wood is on the opposite side, so again, I don't
Right.
know
No,
if
I
like
follow
the
that.
post is in question. Like, is it that the paneling needs to be on my side and then I'm legit, or do they think the entire?
We follow.
Those are all excellent questions for you to ask your neighbor. Are you in contact with?
I was in touch with him today and asked if he could answer just the question. Basically, if my stuff doesn't have to be torn down in this process, I don't have a problem with it. If I have to start tearing stuff down now and I'm not, at the very least, I probably want to pay to get a survey to find out, if in fact I'm tearing my stuff down for nothing.
I think Mr. Morrison's point, though, if the setback line is incorrect because the survey is incorrect, and then we would require an additional setback or side setback variance to be resolved separately or in addition to the front setback.
So I have an unrelated question. Is there space where those first two cars are parked? Those cars to back up rear toward the rear and go out forward onto Spring Street?
Yes.
I mean, the depiction that we saw made the cars look big, I guess. But there's space to do that. Yeah.
And I have a follow-up question to that too. Is there an alternative plan in case the housing authority does not renew their lease? Do y'all have like a plan for parking? Or would that have to come back before this board? If that lease is not renewed?
No, the lease is a long-term lease. It's we haven't filed. And it's so off-site parking is allowed in the zoning ordinance, but the lease requirement is minimum term of 10 years. This lease document, and I reviewed it, does have a term that's at least 10 years long. I don't remember the exact term, but it's at least 10 years long.
It is, might be 20.
Additional question for you, Lee. On the 80-foot, what derives that 80-foot setback from the front? Is that purely a function, or how does that value get determined? Is it based on the zoning requirement for a secondary building on the property?
It's actually a setback for an accessory building. So you could argue that this really is an accessory building. It's got a residential unit, just like the main building and the building in the back. But we typically would apply it to that building. So, yeah, that's the requirement for general business or limited business. No, this is general business.
And you said initially that because of the size of the lot, that 3 buildings were permitted, or what did you say about?
Well, 3 dwelling units are allowed on this
Allowed
lot
on that
because of the
side.
size of the lot. The zoning.
And because this is a variance request, we have a neighbor with a question like this. I'd be in favor of deferring this thing, and letting them have one more opportunity to speak, to see if they can work out what is in effect, even though this gentleman doesn't pose it this way as an objection. He's got a potential objection. And it's probably neither one of them's fault, because there may be a discrepancy in one or the other survey. But I'd feel better voting on this if we knew whether they could work out this business of potential encroachment or not. Because this variance is a high bar for us.
That makes sense to me as well, because then I think then if the question of an additional side setback needs to be addressed, it could be addressed at that time as well. If it needs to be.
Further discussion, is there a motion?
Move to defer the matter to allow the neighbors to speak about and see if they can work out this encroachment issue.
All right, Mr. Morrison has moved to defer. Is there a second?
And it'll give this gentleman a chance to be satisfied about the water runoff issue
That's what
too.
I was gonna say, should that be part of the motion as well for water
We,
mitigation?
sure, if Morrison, Mr. Morrison would like to include that in his motion, we can, we might as well just say any and all issues relating to
Yeah,
the adjacent property owner.
that'd be agreeable to me.
I'll second it.
Excuse me. Right. Ms. Grass has seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye. This is a motion to defer. Any opposed? None are opposed. All right. So the matter is deferred, excuse me. Your owner seems like a creative guy, so he's got 60 unlimited ideas. He can use some of those unlimited ideas to discuss these issues with his neighbors. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
I'll reach out to Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Thank you, Morris. Take care. I'll be fine. All right, the next item on our agenda is B3, 32 Dunneman Avenue, Wagner Terrace, TMS number 463-14-02-017, zoned to SR2, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a rear 2-story addition, kitchen, bathroom, laundry, mudroom, master bedroom suite that extends a non-conforming 4.4-foot east side setback. 9 feet are required. The owner is Earl Navarro. The applicant is John Douglas Tucker, architect. Mr. Batchel.
This is another residential property in Wagner Terrace, corner lot. The existing house is 1.5 stories. Shown here on these plans. Here's an image of the existing home. Side view. Rear view. More information. About the history of the property. This is the existing plan. Existing site plan. It's got this little one-story garage in the back. And this shows the proposed addition, two-story addition. And rear porch. The porch addition is within the setbacks. The proposed addition encroaches a little bit into the side setback adjacent to 11th Avenue. So the request that's before you is for a zoning special exception to allow the extension of that non-conforming 4.4-foot east side setback of this 11th Avenue side of the property. These are existing floor plans and the proposed floor plan. First floor is on the left. This is the second floor here, roof plan on the right. So existing elevations, proposed elevations. So see the two-story addition back here. And the porch, which does not need any approval from the board. And, elevations. And the neighborhood association has provided a letter indicating that they are supportive of this request. That concludes the applicant materials. And again, I think they have done an excellent job of designing an addition that that allows for more living space, but does not alter substantially affect the character of the property. And I think it meets the special exception requirements in this case. And of course, the other thing about this house is it's a little bit higher off the ground. Plus, it's got that half story, so the house perhaps is a little bit taller than the one we just saw, which allows them to fit this two-story addition into the back of the property without increasing the height of the overall house. So that's very nice. And, so my recommendation is for approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. Is there anyone here in opposition to the application at 32 Dunman? All right, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or architect here? Anything you'd like to say? Any questions for Lee? Questions for the applicant? Your motion?
Move for approval.
All right, Ms. Grass moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett got in quite just under the wire there. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes. Special exception for 32 Dunman is granted. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is before 25 Gadsden Street, Charleston Village, TMS number 457-03-03-028, zoned STR, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow the extension of a non-conforming 1-foot south side setback by allowing an addition to an accessory structure shed. 12 feet are required. Owner Zachary Hopkins, applicant Tyler A. Smith Architects, Mr. Batchel.
This is a residential property in Charleston Village. And some map. There's a little shed. See it right back here. Corner. Property back. And what they're proposing to do is basically remove that shed, but then build back a new accessory building that basically extends the non-conforming south side setback of that property, of that building. This would be the view of that new accessory building, 1.5 stories. It's hard to see this, but this survey shows that this existing shed is actually partially on the neighboring property at the rear of the property. So And you see it better here. This is existing. They're basically sliding the footprint of this building forward and extending it, which is what requires the special exception to extend that non-conforming 1 foot south side setback. There is an accessory building on the neighboring property right here. Of course, this will have to go through the BAR and receive their approval as well, so.
So you just showed us the existing shed, Lee?
Yeah, this is existing. And these are images of floor plans and roof plan for the proposed building. Elevations, existing and proposed.
So we're going from a shed to a pool, a nice pool house.
Right. Right. So in effect, it's, yeah, a little bit of a vertical extension too, but it's also mostly a horizontal extension of that footprint. And the neighbor to the south at 23 Gaston is Jerry Theos. And he indicates that he needs, has no opposition to this project. And is the most affected neighbor, really the only affected neighbor, I think. So our recommendation is for approval. I believe that this proposal satisfies the special exception requirements.
All right, thank you, Lee. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 25 Gadsden Street? All right, no one's here in opposition. Do we have the owner or applicant here? All right, Mr. Smith, anything you'd like to say to the board? All right. Lee, you said the Mr. Theos is likely the most affected neighbor. There's also 40 Berry Street. Is that
Right. That's a vacant lot. It's owned by a resident of Montague. Is it Montague?
Yeah, it's number 77 Montague. I
Yeah.
believe. It's Mr. Hershey, Mr. Hopkins, if I can speak for just a moment.
Sure, please.
Um, My name is Tyler Smith. Just want to say Zach Hopkins did reach out to Clay Hershey. He's spoken with him. He told him about what the plans were. He expected him to be able to provide a text message or an email. He just didn't do it.
Okay.
But he did ask him and he spoke to him about it and he did his best to try to get an email from Mr. Hershey.
And to the best of your understanding, there was no opposition or objection from
Correct.
Mr. Hershey. Okay.
Yes.
All right, any questions for the city? Any questions for the applicant? Discussion. Your motion.
Move for approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to
Second.
approve. Mr. Morrison seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the special exception for 25 Gadsden Street is granted. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next item on our agenda is 22A Gadsden Street, Charleston Village, TMS number 457-03-03-022, zoned STR, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a two-story rear addition, porch, stairs, elevated outdoor space, elevator, that extends a non-conforming 1.2 foot north side setback, 6 feet are required. Requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a two-story rear addition, porch, stairs, elevated outdoor space, elevator, with a 10-foot 9-inch rear setback, 25 feet are required. The owner is Lewin Patricia Revocable Trust, applicant Julia F. Martin Architects, Mr. Batchelder.
Another rear addition to residential property, Gadsden Street, this time on the east side of Gadsden. So here you see the property on this map. And what they're proposing to do is build this addition off the back of the existing house. And so they would extend the non-conforming north side setback, which is a 1.2 foot north side setback. They'll also be elevating the house. So this is substantial change to this property. And then in addition to that, they would also like to construct a two-story rear addition to that main addition that is porch, stairs, and elevator with a 10-foot, 6-inch rear setback versus the 25 that is required. So again, here are some images of the property. Explanation, plans, history of the property, photographs. So this house sits fairly low on this block of Gadsden, and site plan. So here you see the proposed elevation or addition. So the main addition is this piece right here. Then the small addition, which requires the variances, is basically the elevator right here, these stairs and landing back here. And actually the stairs and landing don't require the variance. It's only the elevator, because the stairs and the landing are allowed to encroach into the rear setback. So it's just this elevator back here that requires the variance to the rear setback. And so these are floor plans. So elevating the house, they'll have a garage on the first floor back here, and then new living space back here, covered porch, and then second floor is just an extension of the roof. Existing on the left, proposed on the right. Existing on the top, and here is the change back here. And rear elevation. This is the elevator position right here. This is from the neighbor to the north, 24 Gaston Street, indicating that they support this application. And that concludes the information we've received. So again, trying to elevate the house and add some living space, and certainly a elevator seems reasonable. And so anyway, our recommendation is for approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anyone here in opposition to the application for 22A Gadsden Street? All right, no one's here in opposition. Do we have the owner or applicant here? Yes, Ms. Barton, anything you'd like to say to the board? All right. Any questions for the city? Questions?
So I'm just curious, who rules on elevation? BAR does that?
BAR.
So when you have an elevation, and there's several houses in Gadsden Borough that either are going to or in process or wish they could, but I guess what's gonna come with those more often than not is an elevator request, maybe.
Sure.
Which property was 24? Which side? Is that the side that's the most impacted?
I'm not sure on that, but back here. Well, this would be 24 right here.
Okay.
24 Gadsden. This is 22A. I think the 22B and C, maybe you're back here. No. Yeah, you can see 22B and C, 22A.
So no input from a neighborhood association.
No, Charleston Village doesn't normally
Do that.
comment on this sort of thing.
Resident.
Resident.
Their property backs up to mine. And I think it's great. And elevating is necessary. That December flood took one of my cars to drive.
Not bad.
What, any word from the owner at 20 Gas?
I have spoken with her, it's Whitney Bowers. She agreed that the elevation was necessary and the area that we're talking about in terms of the variance is really not adjacent to her property. It's further back.
And 22 B and C.
Those properties are also owned by the owner of 22A, so they're also that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was
Any further questions for Lee? Other questions for the applicant? All right, Ms. Richards moves to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The variance and the special exception for 22A Gadsden Street are approved. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is B6, 141 Duquesne Street, Charleston Village, TMS number 457-07-01-010, zone SR2. Requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a two-story rear addition, porch, stairs, elevated outdoor space that extends a non-conforming 6.8 foot west side setback. 9 feet are required. The owners are Christina and Rex McClure. Applicant is Julia F. Martin, architects. Mr. Batchel.
This is another home in Charleston Village, on the west side of Charleston Village, that's impacted by flooding. And it's a one-story home right here in this little block. And they're proposing to elevate the house. When they do that, they would like to add this addition off the rear. Information, photographs of the existing house. Other houses nearby that are elevated. So the existing site plan is on the left. And the proposed is on the right. So you see this addition back here. And you can see that it approaches into the side setback. And it's the side setback we're dealing with here. The porch and stairs can encroach into the rear setback, but they're not allowed to encroach into the side setback without the board's approval. So in effect, what they're doing is extending the non-conforming side setback of the existing house, which makes this a special exception request. And close-up view. Existing and proposed. Existing and proposed. So you see back here the porch addition that's before you tonight for this approval. So have some text messages. From neighbors, and so no objections from these folks. And again, I think it's a very reasonable request, minimal impact. So my recommendation is for approval. I think they meet the requirements of the test.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anybody here in opposition for the application at 141 Duquesne? Seeing no one in opposition, Ms. Martin, anything you'd like to address with the board? Okay. Any questions for anybody, or we're ready to?
Move approval.
All right, Mr. Morrison moves to approve. Ms. Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. Special exception 4, 141 butane is granted. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is B7, 10 Magnolia Avenue, North Central, PMS number 463-08-03-032, zoned SR2, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a rear one-story addition, pantry, mudroom, master bedroom, bath, closet, suite, porch that extends a non-conforming 2-foot, 8-inch north side setback, 9 feet required. Requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a rear one-story addition, master bedroom suite with a 16-foot, 2-inch rear setback, 25 feet are required. The owner is Shane Langdale. The applicant is Coastal Creek Design, Joel Adrian. Mr. Batchelder.
This home in North Central is in really rough condition. I think, didn't we have an application? Yeah, we did, and that had to be deferred. But, so it's in really rough condition, but the VAR says, no, you can't demolish it. So they're working with the existing house. And they're proposing to build a one-story rear addition off this existing one-story house. Got letters from folks that are supportive. And this is the existing site plan, so you see that the house encroaches into the front and the north side setback. And this shows the proposed addition extending that north side setback encroachment. So that's a special exception to allow the one-story addition, extending this non-conforming 2-foot, 8-inch north side setback. And then there's a variance to allow that one-story addition to encroach into the rear 25-foot setback that's required. It would be 16 feet, 2 inches off the rear property line. But again, they're proposing a one-story addition and which is ideal, I think, for this modest sized home, modest elevation, modest height. And in order to accomplish what they're looking for, they need that encroachment into the rear setback. And that's been done a number of times with modest rear elevations as well. Going up allows you to maybe make a smaller footprint and not encroach as much or at all. But if you keep it one story, then you've got to try and figure out how to make those rooms work. So anyway, I think they've got a reasonable argument for the variance and special exception. And I recommend approval of this request.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anybody here in opposition to the application for 10 Magnolia? Seeing no one, we see Mr. Adrian here and see the owner. Anything you'd like to say to the board?
It's here to answer questions if you have questions, unless you want me to give you some history on how we came up with this.
Would anybody like history?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Question for Lee. Does this go back before BAR just for demolition? Is that the only, or it's an purview for full?
I believe so, but he can answer that better than I can.
So part of the reason, so Joel Adrian, designer, part of the reason for that rear variance request is this existing porch. And so that, if to remove that, I would have to go to BAR. BAR has already indicated that it's a character defining element of the house. And there's actually a view of it down the driveway of a house on Sansucci, I guess you can see it. So the goal was to be able to convert the porch from porch on, keep the structure, make it a heated connection to get back to the master bedroom suite addition. We will have to go to BAR.
So the letters that Lee went through are from both of the neighbors that will be impacted.
I think
Actually, those are
my
my letters.
my-
I'm sorry.
Those are my
That was Joe.
variance letter.
That was
and,
his letter.
Yeah, those are me. So we've approached neighbors, but we have not, nobody said, oh, we're letting in. But everybody's been delivering a set of drawings.
But you haven't heard back from
No.
them?
And I can tell you, so, I did work on this property since the previous owner, when they tried to get house demolished last March. Sierra said no, that owner wanted to do a 2-story addition, the neighborhood was a very result. Being sold to the current client, and we decided that 1-story was the right way to address the lot.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Adrian or? She's from the city?
Seems like a pretty reasonable improvement over a 2-story addition. I think, move for approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Morrison seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes unanimously. And the variance and the special exception for 10 Magnolia are granted. Thank you, Mr. Adrian.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda, VA 545 Hugie Street, Hampton Park Terrace, TMS number 460-02-04-065, zone DR1F. Requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a rear 2-story addition, kitchen expansion, master bedroom, bath expansion that extends a non-conforming 8.2-foot west side setback. 9 feet are required. The owner is Dan Dowd. The applicant is David Clifford, contractor. Mr. Batchelder.
This is a residential property in Hampton Park Terrace. And there's a rear corner of the house that is open right now. What the applicant is requesting your approval for is an addition that basically fills that in and squares off the back of the house. So survey of the existing property. So this is that open area, the back of the house. Side view on the street. Existing proposed, so there's a addition that's shown here on this site plan or survey that we'd like to build 2-story addition. And this would be the floor plan shown here. It's just this addition, not the screen porch on the back, but that is basically that addition is extending that non-conforming west side setback. It's an 8.2-foot west side setback versus the 9 feet that is required. It's a very small encroachment, but encroachment. And second floor is shown here. These are some renderings just showing existing, proposed.
Can you do that again for me? Yeah,
So this area right here gets filled in
right.
there. Then the front, can't really see much change. Another view would be this area right back here. Then from the rear, existing, proposed. And so very small encroachment, but still requires your approval to just simply extend this non-conforming side setback to allow that addition. So our recommendation is for approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anybody here in opposition for 545 Hugie? All right, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant here? All right, is there anything you'd like to?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Any questions for the city?
Lee, can you pop back to the floor plan real quick?
To which
Floor plan, even first or second, doesn't
this is the first floor.
Yeah.
So larger kitchen, yes, back here. here.
Discussion?
That second floor. Master bath.
Got us all on pins and needles.
No, I just wanted to. Sorry.
Do I hear a motion?
I thought I saw smoke coming out.
I'll make a motion for approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Is there a second? All right, Ms. Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The special exception for 545 UDST is granted. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda, B9, 296 Cumming Street, West Side, TMS number 460-04-01-015, zone DR1F, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a rear one-story screen porch deck addition that extends a non-conforming 5.5-foot south side setback 9 feet are required. The owner is Nicholas Crane. The applicant is John Sullivan, S Arch Studio, Batchelder.
So these are two residential units on this property in West Side. And on Cumming Street, just north of Sumter Street. And it's an odd situation to have two separate houses on the property, but that's the way it is. And here are those houses. Two-story houses. And what they're requesting approval for is a one-story screen porch addition back here. So that is extending that that non-conforming south side setback of 0.2 feet. No, wait. Of 5.5 feet. These are elevations showing the porch addition back here. Photographs, the existing conditions. Others, neighbors, some close, some not real close, but in support. And Carolina. So that concludes the information submitted by the applicant. It's a pretty modest request. I think there's a 9-foot setback required. These buildings will be 5.5 feet off the south side, but they'll be one-story additions. So I believe that they satisfy the special exception requirements and recommend approval.
Thank you, ladies. Do we have anybody here to object to the application at 296 Cumming Street? All right, no one here in opposition. Do we have the owner or applicant here? All right.
Yeah.
Is there anything?
John Sullivan, the applicant, Nick Crane's the owner. We'll just be here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Can I see that last slide in this section again, please, for this application?
One of
The
the
very last one. Yes, sir.
okay.
I just didn't get a chance to look. Okay, so it's neighborhood association support. Have you heard any objections about what it is that you're trying to do?
Sure.
Okay, and you talked to all the neighbors in the area.
Well, it's around the neighborhood association, yes, sir.
All right, any questions for the city? Any questions for the applicant? The motion. All right, Ms. Grass moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Morrison seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the special exception for 296 Cumming Street is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item B10 on our agenda, 72 Murray Boulevard, Charlestown, PMS number 457-11-02-059, zoned SR2, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a one-story deck addition that extends a non-conforming 6-foot west side setback 9 feet are required. The owner applicant is Alamo Mob LLC, Kevin Leonard. Mr. Batchelder.
This is a property in the Charlestown neighborhood. Shown here on this zoning map. Residential property. And what is being requested is a front addition. And it's a deck. So information was submitted to this application. Put all of that here. Including these plans, so. These are photographs. Well, the lower left is a photograph of existing property from Murray Boulevard. And neighboring properties are shown on right. This is existing conditions, and what they're proposing to do is build a deck in this area of the front yard. And to do that, they want to come off the house, follow the same line as the existing house out towards Murray Boulevard. And that existing house does not meet the west side setback for this lot. So here you see the existing house approaching into that west side setback. And so the deck that they're requesting approval for is the area shown with this yellow color site plan. Then there is a walkway and a terrace, I guess, with a flagpole that they're proposing out here. That those do not require your approval. It's just the area shown in yellow that requires your approval, and that's because that is an elevated deck, and we count that as a building under our zoning ordinance, and so we require those features to meet setback requirements. And in this case, they need the approval of the board to extend the existing non-conforming 6-foot west side setback. So this is a 6-foot setback from the west side property line to the existing house. They're simply extending that forward with this deck addition. There's a close-up view. And of course, this will have to go through the BAR and be approved by the BAR. Clearly it's visible from the street, so they will have to approve it, but these are just images showing the proposed changes that they would like to make. Steps, the deck. And then this is an indication from the neighboring property owner to the west, indicating that they are approved or approving this plan, but with 3 conditions. So I think I've listed those here with my recommendation. So my recommendation would be to approve this request. Believe it satisfies the special exception requirements with these 3 conditions, that there not be a yard arm on the flagpole, that there's no fire pit, and that the deck height would not exceed 30 inches in height. I know it's 36 inches here, but the plans indicate 30 inches in height, so I'm not sure where the 36 came from, but I don't know that they could make it any taller, because if they did, they'd be creating an issue for themselves with the front of the building. But this elevation right here is shown to be 30 inches. So with those 3 conditions, I recommend that this be approved.
Does the flagpole have to go through BAR?
I believe it does. I believe it does.
Can you show me where that flagpole is on plan? I think I'm at.
Yeah,
Is that right in the front corner?
It's this
Okay.
flagpole right here. It's actually, it's hard to read, but.
I mean, we have jurisdiction over the flagpole, or
Right.
that's just to get the neighbors' approval that we've suggested. That.
Right.
I would say if there, we can approve it subject to conditions, it would be simpler. If we hear from the owner applicant is Mr. Leonard.
Last man standing.
Yeah, do you object to any of those conditions?
No.
Okay.
My next door neighbors are super nice. They're elderly and it's what she objected to was the yard arm that goes, which is the cross beam on a flagpole where you put extra flags, kind of a nautical theme. And she was concerned about it being too noisy when it gets windy. I told her it's fine. I didn't mind at all. As far as the fire pit was something that the previous owner had suggested in his backyard. Really has nothing to do with this. But I told her, again, no problem at all. So I'm fine with all those. And then being brother 36 versus 30, it's supposed to be 30. She wrote 36. So it's supposed to be 30 inches. I'm perfectly fine with all of those. And just so you know why I'm putting a deck there is because when they built the lower battery wall, and they raised it up, which is in front of my house, they raised it up 2.5 feet and it blocks my view from my yard. So I can no longer see the water from my front yard. So having the deck would be great. And nobody can see the deck. The next door neighbor can't see it at all. There's a 10-foot high hedge. She could see it from possibly her third floor, which they don't even go on. It's just a storage area up there. And you can see a portion of it from the street, but only through the gates. The photos that you saw there were old photos of the house before. There's a big hedge that goes along the front. You can just see through the double gates that are under construction right now.
Any questions for the owner while he's here? May I just make a suggestion? I sort of sense that we may hear a motion to approve with conditions. I would just say no permanent fire pit. I would hate to have somebody call somebody out, building a fire.
Very good suggestion.
And make sure we're saying in this area. In case he wants to go one in the back, I guess.
Any other questions?
I may be the only, I may be by myself on this one, but I have some objection. I feel it is out of character for the neighborhood. But I understand why that I might be alone in that feeling.
And
Front yard decks to me seem a little unusual. I can't think of any others that I've seen in the city. But perhaps someone could point to others that I've missed.
Well, you raise a question in my mind.
Well, there might be one. I'm thinking there might be a front terrace on South Battery. In front of a home that's on the south side of South Battery, somewhere down in this area.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what the address is, but it is unusual.
I don't have any seating area. Like I don't have a covered deck or anything on the front of my house at all, where most houses all have covered.
Yeah, like
covered decks
or some,
which. Yeah. I would do that. I went through bar. This has been approved by bar. I've already been through bar with several gyrations on the deck. And this is what this
is what BAR approved.
This is what BAR approved, and this is what BAR.
And for a special exception, Mr. Batchelder, do we, isn't it air light and, do we have to take into consideration the character of the neighborhood and granting a special exception?
It does say, let me pull this up. My piece. Let's wait with perception being what it is.
I know if it was a variance, we certainly would have to consider that. Special exception, I tend to think of the impact on the neighbors for a special exception.
And that's 54.
Okay. Says that the board shall consider the effect of the extension properties in the vicinity to include traffic impacts, vehicular, pedestrian safety, parking impacts, potential impacts of noise, lighting, fumes, or obstruction of airflow or light, impacts on the aesthetic character of the environs, to include the possible need for screening if an extension or increase is permitted.
Okay. I think that satisfies my concerns, and especially hearing that the ARs have been particularly get through the process already.
And it's fully screened inside and. So the hedge you see right there is one hedging, the whole nother hedging inside. It follows the whole thing. You won't be able to see it at all.
How are you gonna see out to the river?
Well, this is, I'm going to see over it. It's very low deck. It's only,
Yeah.
it's only this
Yeah,
side,
yeah.
so.
All right, any further questions?
Nobody wants to see the river in their yard in order. to-
Right.
Move approval.
All right, with conditions?
Yes.
All right, and those conditions would be,
Ones listed.
okay.
Flagpole, no yard.
So I've got it right here. So those conditions would be number one, no yard arm on the flagpole. Number two, no permanent fire pit. And number three, the deck not to exceed 36 inches.
30
height.
30
30.
inches.
30 inches of height. Okay. All right, Ms. Grass seconds that motion to approve with conditions. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The special exception is granted for 72 Murray Boulevard with those exceptions. Stated conditions as stated. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're adjourned. Started slow, but
Yeah, you made up for lost time.